Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Funny Thing Is podcast. This is season 2. Can you believe it? We did it. We did it. We made it. In fact, we have a sponsor today, and that is Skin Service in Sherman Oaks, California. If you were looking for an esthetician to give you the best facial, a bespoke experience, check out my girl, Kat. Go to Skin Service. It's serviss.com. By the way, her husband's name is BJ Service, and that is not a joke. Okay, let's moving on. Okay, so for today, I just want to let you know, thank you to everybody who checked out season 1. Super, super grateful for all the feedback. We had hundreds of messages, not only on our socials, but also the podcast itself. And I want to address a lot of those today. In fact, 80% of them had like a stream through theme, which is, do people change? Because obviously with the podcast, that's what this whole thing is about, is something happens to somebody, their life is changed forever. It's about the medicine they take to get better and the funniest lesson they learned along the way, right? So here's what I want to do this season. I'm going to do some more solo stuff where I get to engage with the audience and all of your messages that you've been sending us, but also still bring on guests that have a lot to say, that have a lot of medicine to share, and then a lot of funny stuff also. Next week, we're going to have Corey Clifford, who's not only my best friend, but who is in the room when I delivered my daughter. What do they say? They say, good friends hold your purse, best friends hold your leg, right? It's fine. So she's going to tell you her take on the whole Craig and I getting pregnant after a one-night stand together and having a baby. She has a very different outlook on it that I think you guys are going to enjoy. That said, let's get started. So the question is, do people change? And here is my answer. The answer is yes. If you want to change, you can change 100%. If you're wanting somebody else to change, which is, I know there's a lot of insecure people in relationships right now watching this, as I did for about 10, 15 years. When you're in an insecure relationship and you're like, I wonder if he can change. I wonder if he can commit. I hope he can change. That's not the person who's going to change, okay? You're not going to inspire them to change. You're not going to scare them into changing. But if you yourself want to change, that's where real change happens. But if his name is like Chet and he's into Bitcoins and he's still like banging 3 chicks on the side, that dude's not going to change. Pass go. Don't collect $200. Keep moving. Do you know what I'm saying? When I thought about like all the times in my life I've changed, like think about me. Okay, here's the deal. 5 years ago, I was super successful. I was in the best shape of my life, which was like 40 pounds ago. Ayo. I was dating a better caliber of guys after dating like 15 years of douchers. That's on me. And I lived in my favorite apartment in Larchmont. Everything was booming. Then I got pregnant. And then within a year from that, I was food stamps, rock bottom, include a pandemic, isolated, like struggle bus survival mode. And then now 2 years later, which is where we are today, everything's popping again. We're getting the finances in order. We're like, boom, we've got plans. I'm in the most healthy relationship I've ever been in. So in 5 years, I've changed dramatically twice. Like those are big shifts. Some of those, and this is what I want to point out, some of those are because people change when things happen to them, which is what all the guests on season 1 talked about. You know, Chris Porter got hit in the head with a golf ball, right? Changed his life. He had a traumatic brain injury. He went from wanting a 9-to-5 job, and all he wanted was a man cave in the basement, like a small little man cave in the basement. He's like, I wanted a 401k. I wanted to come home to a wife and a pool table in the basement. That's all he wanted. Gets hit in the head with a golf ball, traumatic brain injury, brain surgery, ends up now becoming a super successful stand-up comedian who's opening for Bert Kreischer, who's also, by the way, opening for Jelly Roll at the Ryman Theater, and they're getting high in the back like Willie and Waylon did. Like this is like sometimes shit happens to you to push you forward and you have no idea that that's what it's there to do. And it's struggle bus until you start thriving. Like that's what it is, right? So that's stuff that happens to you. And then there's stuff that happens for you is what I'll say. So for me, you know, I had a one-night stand and I got pregnant, right? That's something I have to take accountability for. That's something that I took part in that created a trajectory that changed my life. Or like if you're thinking, oh, I know, like I used to overpluck my eyebrows in the 90s, right? Because it was that Gwen Stefani No Doubt era. And now I don't have any eyebrows and I have to draw them on. That's on me, right? Like I got to take accountability, okay, for the changes that take place. Because now I spend thousands of dollars on Revita Brow treatments, and they still ain't working. I don't give a they still ain't working. I mean, I still want them as a sponsor, but they ain't working. You know what I mean? So like, yes, you can change. Like even my taste in men have changed. Okay. Like I used to date the guys that like wore Axe body spray and made their own IPAs out of their bathtub and like live with their ex-girlfriends, right? But they're just friends, right? I used to date those guys. Would I date that guy today? Absolutely not. I wouldn't even meet him for a free appetizer. And you guys know I love my spin dip. Like I wouldn't even do that. It's completely, I used to have pictures of Henry Cavill all over my vision board. That was my dream guy. And I had a list of things next to him, the characteristics I wanted. And now I'm in love with a 5'9" ginger with a dad bod. What happened? What happened, guys? Because here's the thing. I used to date actor model types, not like models, but actors who did print work. You know what I mean? Like they're on the cover of like a Valtrex poster. Like that's the guys I used to date. And now I'm with 5'9" ginger dad bod. How did we get here? Okay. Because it went from Henry Cavill to Ron Weasley. And I'm happy as a clam. Who knew? I will say that out of the 10 things I listed next to Henry Cavill, the characteristics, you know, like loyal and financially stable and loves my daughter, stuff like that. The 10 things I listed, Matt hit all 9. The only one he didn't hit, by the way, was he was not a current homeowner, which is hilarious because if he was a homeowner when we met, we probably wouldn't have dated because we lived in different states. And now we're actually thinking about buying a home together. So it's like the universe gives you what you need, not what you want all the time. Eh? And give me that dad bod. Give me all, and he's going bald. A redhead that's going bald, it's like, which one's worse? Do you know what I mean? It's like the head's like fighting for, anyway, land rights. Okay, but here's the deal. If you've been dating a guy for, let's say, over 6 months, especially over a year, and he's not even committing to you, just run. Like you're going to put in so much energy, as I have done in the past, to try to change them, to try to fix them, to try to get them to come on board. And here's the thing. There are exceptions. You're going to hear some woman say, I chased him for 6 years and finally he proposed. Congratulations. How's that marriage looking? Because in my experience, especially as a bartender for 20 years, those relationships don't end up in a happy ever after where both people are nurturing each other. They end up in being my bar regulars at 2:30 in the afternoon, like every day. Like that's who they become. Because if you start your foundation off like that, you're going to end up spending the rest of your life trying to get him to commit to something that he doesn't want to commit to. Also, if he's like 30, his name is Chet, he uses words like bussin' and riz, like we're done. Like we're done. You can't, if you're in your 20s, that's great. But this guy, he's got to know what he's doing. He's got to be financially stable. He's got to be able to be emotionally available to you. And there were times in previous relationships where I was like, well, he is emotionally available because he, you know, talks to me every day. But it would be like, hey, you up? That's not emotionally available. That's, are you sexually available? That's what he's asking. Okay. One thing I wanted to share with you guys, and this is great. I'm going to be reading from my notes. I saw this on TikTok when it comes to people who change. And there's a man named John Maxwell, and he says people only change under 4 conditions. Okay. Number 1, they hurt enough that they have to. They see enough that they're inspired to. They learn enough that they want to, or they receive enough that they're able to. And I've gone through I think everybody at some point has gone through all 4 of those, right? So they hurt enough that they have to. That's like usually when you hit rock bottom. I think that is when men tend to learn the most. That's also when I learn the most. When you have nowhere else to go but up, that's when you're going to learn a lot, right? When they see enough that they're inspired to change. So like my mom was a single mom, my sister's a single mom, but I had to look outside of that and look at more inspirational people like celebrities that like like Shonda Rhimes. She was a showrunner. She had like 10 shows on at the same time. And she's like, oh yeah, I started writing when I was a single mom. And I would write in the middle of the night when the kids were sleeping. And she would just be so sleep deprived that she would just keep writing because she needed to. And it was her outlet. And I was like, oh, that's how it's done. Or like J.K. Rowling, like she wrote all the Harry Potter books as a struggling single mom who is below the poverty line. So I had to like look for those working women that made a career even against all odds. Does that make sense? Okay. And then learn enough that they want to change. So like I'm big on research. I'm big on self-help books. Everybody's like, what book are you reading? Are you reading that new one, you know, Oprah's book club? And I'm like, I don't know. Does it have to deal with attachment styles and daddy issues? Then no, then I'm not reading it. Okay. And then the last one is receive enough that they're able to. So I think I received so much help on my friends pushing me to do like social media and get back out there because, as you know, with the pandemic and being a single mom, I couldn't tour every weekend. That's not even in the cards for me now because she's 4 and I don't want to be on the road 40 weeks a year. So they were like pushing social media and they were helping me. And these were successful influencers that were like, you can do it too. We're going to give you our secrets, which was great. Not sure the secrets are all working yet, but I'm figuring it out. Okay. And then of course, like my boss gave me my bartending job back. So I bartended till I was 9 months pregnant and I was still making really good money, but I wanted to make sure I had enough in savings that I could take off work for 6 months. Did not know a pandemic was coming. And I was like, after you leave a bartending job after so many years or so many years in the service industry, your attitude is kind of like, what's up? I'm out. I'm never coming back. See you later. And like, that was my vibe. And my boss still gave me my job back when I was like, hey, I have no money. Can I come and like, I don't know, maybe sling some drinks? She's like, yeah, you get 2 shifts. What do you want? And I was like, oh, and like that saved my life because bartending, which at one point in my life was depleted my soul and made me so frustrated, was now my lifeline back into the world, back into financial stability, able to pay for my kids' preschool and only working 2 shifts a week. So it wasn't like I was still drowning in it, but I was like, I was able to thrive in it. So special thanks to Angela for giving me my job back. So if you're still hearing this, that men can be inspired by you, their loving girlfriend, even though they don't call you their girlfriend, to change, just know that your boyfriend Benji, who's like focused on gaming and Bitcoin, might not be the one. Okay, but there's somebody out there that is ready to be the one for you. Go find that guy. So combing through a lot of the questions, a lot of the same questions kept coming up. So we have insights and stats about what podcast episode did the best. We kind of have assumptions on why they did the best, what got the most questions, what got the most likes and shares and all that stuff. That would be Craig and I's episode. Craig is the father of my daughter. His episode is 34% more popular than any other episode we did. And which surprised me because I thought, here I am, I'm going to be sitting and asking these questions and then just throwing in these one-liners every now and then. And then with Craig, I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable because it's both of us sharing the same life-changing event, right? And what I learned, especially from the questions that were being asked, was a lot of people didn't understand how we came to have a one-night stand together, even though we were friends for like 7 years leading up to that, and how we co-parent now. And we would get some mostly positive comments, to be honest. But there are a few where it's like, sometimes you get slut shamed for it, or which like, whatever. Some people would write in and say things like, well, lucky for you, you guys keep it out of the court, but that's not the same for most people, or that doesn't work for most people. And it's like, yeah, well, we're not sharing what works for most people. We're sharing what works for us. I will say just a quick backstory is Craig and I were friends for 7 years. I was going through a breakup. We were hanging out one night and, or actually I called him and I was like, hey, would you like to come over and make me feel better? And so he did. And he tried his hardest to make me feel better. And he did such a good job that we ended up with a baby. So after that, when I told him I was pregnant, he had quite a bit of a freak out moment, which he admitted in the episode. And through that freak out moment, which lasted about 3 years, after she was born, I think he like right around a month past her 3rd birthday, he was like, okay, this is great. I kind of dig this chick. She's a pretty cool kid. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad you're on board now. So watching his mind explode was amazing and great for comedy. You know what I mean? So we did that. We co-parent really well. We keep it out of the legal system. We see a counselor probably every 3 to 6 months just so we can better learn how to co-parent with each other. Again, it's already hard enough. By the way, I had a bar regular the other day. I said, yeah, we actually have therapy, co-parenting therapy. And he goes, ugh, you guys have therapy? Clearly a guy who's never had therapy and absolutely needs it. And I go, yeah, why? And he goes, well, I thought things were working for you. And I go, things are working for us because we go to therapy. because we are two different people who were born from two different circumstances. His parents divorced and married each other 3 times. My mom's been divorced and married divorced twice, married 3 times. My dad's divorced once, married once, right? Or divorced twice. Exactly. I can't keep track. Okay. So if I come from a can't keep track kind of person and he comes from a what the heck is going on, make up your mind kind of person, we grew up in those environments and together we're having a baby. Holy crap, go to therapy. He's got a way different version of how he was raised. I have a way different version on how I was raised, as most people do. I mean, me and my siblings were raised in the same house for a significant amount of time, and all of us parent differently. Every single one. So like for 2 people who didn't even live in the same household, to assume that you're going to get it right or that you're going to know and we do not get it right, by the way. We just don't. But like, do we think that we're doing better than the circumstances we came from? Absolutely. Now, to give our parents some credit, they got divorced in like the 80s. And I think for his parents and the 90s, right? Because there was a lot going on. But when our parents got divorced in the 80s, it wasn't even mainstream yet. So nobody knew what to do. So imagine people coming from a generation that never got divorced and now they're getting divorced. What's the easiest thing to do as a human being? It's easy to tell your mom and dad, well, I'm getting divorced from this person because he's kind of an asshole or because he's a jerk or because he's financially unstable. You have to blame the other person because you're doing something in society that isn't mainstream yet. So you have to kind of justify it and defend yourself. That's human nature. That's what you're going to do. So we obviously come from a generation where you pit parents against each other in a divorce. That's why the legal system is thriving right now and has been for the last 40 years because it's like, yeah, everybody's getting divorced and everybody wants to take and there's greed and there's not communication. Nobody's doing therapy and we all have to just get what we can. Kids are the ones who suffer. So our biggest thing has always been not to let Everly suffer, to know that she is loved, to know that mommy and daddy, no matter what, will always communicate so that she has the best chance at it. And I don't know if Craig feels this way, but I kind of feel like, I don't want to say she's at a disadvantage. I feel like I've already set her up to not have a traditional family. And so now it is my job to throw everything at this so that she still has all the things that a traditional family, I should say this, a healthy traditional family can provide for her, because there's a lot of traditional, mom and dad are still together and it is toxic. So, and so that is our goal, is to provide that for her. Through that, and I'll answer some specific questions that we had here. About a little over a year ago, I met my now boyfriend, Matt, who, the 5'9" ginger. And I was doing a show in Dallas. I was touring. My good friend Rebecca, who lives out here in Los Angeles, she was like, oh, I have to actually go home to Dallas around that weekend because I have to meet my new niece. Why don't I go and I'll bring one of my brothers to your show? And so she did. And that's when I met her brother. And that's it. The rest is history. He would fly out every other weekend for 10 months to see me. And it was like he just showed up. Like he showed up hard. I will say I was not looking for love. I will say I was absolutely secure in myself. I was okay with being alone with myself. A lot of people can't be alone with themselves. I was fine with it. In fact, I was usually too tired to do anything anyway. And he came in, I don't want to say knight in shining armor because that, makes it sound too perfect, but he showed up at a time where he wanted to be a part of a family. And he always wanted to be a family man. That was his whole goal, his whole life. And here I was with a kid struggling, and you put these two together and you're like, oh, we both have this like utopian way to help each other, if that makes sense. All right, so now let's get to the questions that you guys messaged the most. Let's see. The first one was, how could you not have any feelings for each other? Craig and I. So, I assume it's Craig and I. So I would imagine this. Imagine you've known a friend for like a few years and you're like, hey, you're single. I'm single. We're the only ones that are single in our group, right? Our friend group. So why don't we go have a couple drinks and just see what happens? And then you go have a couple of drinks and you're like, oh man, there's no chemistry here. Like, and you both agree and you're like, if there's no chemistry at all, there's definitely no chance of a romantic long-term relationship, right? So you shake hands, you're like, all right, I'll see you next Friday at that event, but we're just going to be friends. Great. That's exactly what happened. But instead of wine, we had sex. See what I'm saying? Like, that's the same thing. We just, and the sex was not good for him, I don't think. I was very inebriated, and it was like, ouch, ouch, get off my hair. So, yeah. And he looks at me like a sister now. So that was pretty easy not to fall for each other. Let's see. Okay. Do you regret having a one-night stand? No. So regret is interesting because I will use that word interchangeably with, do I have a little bit of shame around it? Yeah. But for the most part, the only thing in my life that I truly regret, meaning I would go back and I would change, would be over plucking my eyebrows. That's it. Everything else I would not go back and change because it would change the trajectory of how I got here. So sometimes I say, oh, I regret that. But in all honesty, no, because then I wouldn't have my daughter. And she's pretty dope. Let's see. How has motherhood changed you? Well, I used to love Adderall and body shots, and now I paint rocks. So, no, that's I'm being facetious. I used to love Adderall, but I think that's the surface stuff, right? Like, it changes your schedule. It makes you tired. I put on weight. I carry weight in weird places now. It's constant. But I will say I was looking down the barrel of being a comedian who in her 60s would have been telling the same dick jokes. I mean, they might have been elevated dick jokes, but they would still be like, oh, I'm on Tinder. Guess what Tinder's like in your 60s? Like that, it would have been the same subject matter I was covering 10 years ago. And I'm so grateful. This isn't my plug for all female comedians to go get pregnant. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me personally, I had a very narrow window of things that I would talk about, and now it has blown the doors off of it, and everything is wide open now. Kind of how I was during delivery. So, motherhood has changed every aspect of my life. I have you guys, I have standards now. Standards. Like, I'm with a guy who communicates. He has a secure attachment style. He, and I'll get into like little things that he did for me later that made me fall in love with him, but he shows the fuck up, and he shows the fuck up every day. I mean, like, I want to say almost every minute of the day. Like, if it's ever come to task, he shows up. That's not what I was attracted to before. I wouldn't, and people are like, would you have dated him 5 years ago? Fuck no. No, not unless he had like 6-pack abs and like a coke addiction. Like, I wouldn't have done that. But now I'm like, I'm so attracted to him. And there's that thing. Oh, I did a video on Instagram, but this guy goes, women are not aroused by dad bods. I'm drenched, soaked to the bone, my friend. He does it for me. Now, is it because I am emotionally attached to him and attracted to him for various different reasons? Yeah. But he also physically does it for me. Like, those can't be like separate. Those are interchangeable, especially for women. Like, you have to turn something on here to turn something on here. Do you know what I mean? I'm pointing to my head and heart and vagina, if you're just watching this or if you're just listening.
Do you think that if your mom bod didn't come in, you would be still attracted to him? Do you think that changed your taste at all?
So I've never had like a bikini body. I probably did. I just was too insecure. So if my mom bod didn't come in.
You have a great bod, by the way.
No, thanks. Thank you. It's curvy with a little bit of fluff.
No,
Thank you.
It's cute.
I think I would have, because I honestly think I could have given birth to her, gotten 6-pack abs immediately, and it wouldn't have mattered, because what changed was what I needed in a relationship now. And dude, the shit that I put up with before, I had no tolerance for anymore. Like, I was dating this guy briefly, and when I say briefly, on and off for like 6 months. We were never exclusive. We were both very, very busy. So we would see each other like once every 4 to 6 weeks. It was not very often. And he was successful. He was driven. He was very kind. He dressed so well. I think he had money. He had a lot of money, and from what I was used to, and would not entertain even the thought of being with that guy now. because after I have Matt, who is less successful compared to that guy, but shows up more, I'll take the guy who shows up more, like any day of the week. Yeah, which is different. And your priorities change. I think I would have gone for the money guy, 5 years. Well, I don't know. I dated a lot of people that were unemployed too. So equal opportunist. Oh, here's one of the bad comments. I remember this. Okay. So some woman came on Craig and I think it was on YouTube, came under Craig and I's interview and was like, I'm so proud of you guys for learning how to navigate this in such a mature way and to getting therapy. It shows that you're putting your daughter first. Way to be mature. And then somebody commented under that, it wasn't very mature to have a one night stand now, was it? And now you're paying the price.
Jesus.
And I'm like, okay. So like for the first comment, I'm like, thank you so much. That feels so good to hear. And thank you for spreading love and joy today. What a great message to send out into the world, to send to me personally. And for the last one, shut the fuck up. Like nobody gives it. Yeah, I had a one night stand. A lot of people have them. Again, it brought me my daughter. There's things that we do to ourselves that we need to take responsibility for, which I clearly have, and allow us to change. If you don't have the nuance that people are allowed to change and grow and be different people, I am not the same person I was 10 years ago. Thus, the whole title of this entire episode, which is Can People Change? But also, I wouldn't want to be the same person I was 10 years ago. I needed to change. And if it meant having a one night stand to do it, I would have had 20 more. I know that's going to piss you off. Okay.
20 more children.
20 more children. No, absolutely not. Ooh, no, thank you. One night stands, though, those were fun. I didn't have a lot, but anyway. What's something about you people don't know? I would say only my close friends know this, but like on social media and stuff. And I talked to a friend of mine who used to direct me at the Groundlings Theater a couple days ago. And when I told her how hard I struggled the first 3 years, where it was like I was suffering from PTSD, I had mad depression. I don't think I had serious suicidal thoughts, but I definitely like just did not want to be here. I don't think people knew that. I don't think people knew how dark it got, and that it's only been a year since it's gotten better. And honestly, it's only been 4 months since I haven't felt like I was surviving. And that's because Matt moved in. And when Matt moved in, I didn't have to. He literally allowed me to basically take a nap for 4 months to rest, to get my energy back. And now I'm coming out of it and like, all right, let's hit the ground running. Let's go, 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 go. And he's all about that energy. So poor guy, he moved in and probably thought, oh, this is going to be a long life with this chick if like I'm carrying. And what's funny is I asked him recently, I go, man, when you were like picking her up from school like twice a week and when you were watching her like so I could take a nap or so I could sleep in, did you expect that you were going to have to watch her that much? And the first thing he said was, I thought you were going to need me 5 days a week, morning, noon, and night, and you only needed me twice. So no, I thought you were going to need me a lot more. And I was like, and then I cried, of course, because I was like, here I am carrying all this guilt for putting, 20% of my burden on him. And he's like, I wanted 50. I wanted 60. And you're like, oh, you're such a good dude. Oh, such a great guy. Let's see. What are you? A nurse, a comedian, a bartender? I'm confused. Okay. So I am a comedian first and foremost. I have a character that I do on social media called Nurse Rachel, which has done very well for me. It is based on my cousin Rachel, who lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She's a nurse. I come from a long line of nurses. Her mom was a nurse. My cousin Jenny's a nurse. And hearing some of the stories. And I was also pre-med, so I did an internship at a hospital in Topeka, Kansas when I was pre-med. Don't worry, it didn't go far. Nobody wants to see me hold a scalpel. So I've been exposed a lot to the medical field. And with that, I started one video about being a nurse on 4th of July, because that is when I did my internship in the ER. And I am still scarred from that experience because people are fucking insane during the 4th of July. And it was the busiest day at the hospital in Topeka, Kansas. So I did a video about it. It did really well. So I just kept doing that. So a lot of people, and I keep saying this when anybody messages me and says, thank you for your service. I'm like, my service is comedy. The real heroes are the nurses. So no, I am not actually a nurse. That is just a character, a very popular character that I do. I am a comedian. I like stand up mostly. And then I've done sketch and improv and all that stuff. Am I also a bartender? Yes. And I've debated whether or not I would admit this on the show, but I think it's important. So, because it's about change, right? So my sister and I have always had side hustles. My sister would always have a waitressing job, even though she'd have a 6-figure job. She would have a waitressing job just so she could afford clothes. She's into style. She's into styling and fashion and bags that I'm like, why would you pay that much for a bag? And she's like, lay off me. So she would use all of her extra money to do that. I would use all my extra money for travel. So I was doing these grand trips that were so amazing and I was exploring the world. So that's what I would do. So I will always have a side hustle. Maybe if I'm making like over 200,000, I won't have a side hustle. I'll say that. Maybe. I don't know. I've always liked the idea of just compartmentalizing that this money goes to this. Right now, bartending, this is kind of sadder now that I say it out loud, bartending directly pays for my kids' really good preschool. I want her to have a really good experience in preschool, and for that, that's what the money goes to directly. Yeah, so I'm still going to do that. And also bartending, I get so much material. I only work 2 lunch shifts a week. The amount of money I make is ridiculous for what the hours I put in, like 6-hour shifts. So yes, technically I'm still a bartender. Also, one of my characters is a bartender. I don't know how much longer the bartending gig's going to last, but I love it and I don't mind it. And I used to hate it because if you've been doing it long enough, you just end up hating the service industry. Maybe this is weird. So maybe your love languages are off. I'm assuming they posted this under the trailer for the entire season. So I'm assuming they meant Craig and I. Coffee story with my cousin Chris. Oh, so maybe your love languages are off. Here's the thing. If you ask me what Craig's love language is, I would not be able to tell you. As much as Craig and I are friends and we've known each other for a really long time, I do not know him in the way that people know their husbands or other people that they have children with. Like my cousins came to visit me after I'd had Everly. And I'm not sleeping. I'm in a robe all day. I'm breastfeeding. I'm pumping. And I'm just disgusting. And I'm like holding the baby. And my cousin Chris comes in to visit. And she's like, okay, we're going to go get you some coffee. We're going to go get you something to drink. Or I can't remember what she was getting me. She's like, we're going to go to Starbucks. What does Craig drink? Because Craig was coming over later. And I'm literally holding the baby, shaking. And I'm like, I don't know what he drinks. What do you mean? And she's like, well, I just thought you would know his coffee order. And I'm like, I just had his baby. Why would I know his coffee order? You know, like that's like how insane that is that I don't know him on that level. Like, I don't know. I think it's an Americano now because I've actually asked him. But our love languages are off. So here's the love languages. I wanted to go over this. So obviously it's words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and receiving gifts. So like words of affirmations are like, hey, babe, nice dick. I love to say that. That's great. That's a good morning to your spouse or your husband or your boyfriend. Like just be like, hey, nice swinging dick. Love it. Like those are good words of affirmation. Words of affirmation, nothing feels better to me than when Matt says, you got this, and slaps me on the butt, which is also ties into the next one, which is physical touch. Okay. I like both of those. Let's do both. Let's wake me up in the morning and be like, you've got this, babe. Slap me on the ass. Best day ever just started. Not going to have a bad day after that. Okay. Let's see. Physical touch is like whether you want them to hold your hand or pull your hair, whatever you're into. Quality time. I want to sit on a bench and read a book like in Notting Hill. I guess that's what it is. Acts of service. I'll wipe your butt when you're 90. Receiving gifts. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Now, they say that your love language is based on what you did not get as a kid. Right. So mine used to always be physical touch and quality time. Thanks, mom and dad. I'm just kidding. Everybody has one. And even if you were given all 5, it's the one you were given the least of. And so again, mine has always been quality time, physical touch, which happens to be Matt's also. But here's what I found fascinating. Somebody asked me, can your love languages change? And my answer is yes. Because if you are going through something, I think at your core, they don't change. But if you're going through something like I was when I was struggle bus, single mom, just trying to survive, Mine actually changed to acts of service, and I didn't realize it until acts of service would have probably been the lowest one. That and gift giving. Gift giving would have been the lowest. I had very generous grandparents who were always giving me any toy I wanted. They're like, you want the Barbie? You get the Barbie. You know, I didn't have a Barbie dream house, but I'm still holding on to that. So I just never had a need for material things. However, once I was struggling as a single mom, Matt would come visit and he would come in, he'd walk in, he'd collect all the little trash bins in the bathroom, the big trash can in the kitchen. He would take it out. Then he would come inside and he would do whatever dishes were in the sink. And that doesn't sound like a lot. It took maybe 15 minutes at most. And that was the sexiest thing that he could have done at that time. The relief after you do it day in, day out, every day, and usually by yourself, and you only have help, like Craig was only helping like 10% of the time. When you have that relief, nothing is hotter. And that's when I was like, yeah, you about to get that physical touch, baby. Okay? That's what you do. So now that he has helped me so much, now I'm getting back into quality time and physical touch. Libido goes way up, huh? He can't keep up with me. By the way, he's 28 and I'm 41. What? I know. Go ahead, judge me. I don't give a shit. I thought he was 50. So gingers, they don't age well. You know what I mean? So when we were in Dallas, his sister was there. And I thought Matt was her older brother. Now, Becca was 35, 36 at the time. So I'm like, Matt and I hit it off. And I'm like, oh, your older brother. We hang out for like 3 days in a row. And I say that to him. And he goes, oh, no. And I know there's 4 siblings total. There's 4 of the kids, right? He goes, I'm not the oldest. Becca's the oldest. I'm the youngest. I go, say what? Now I'm 40 at the time. I'm like, what'd you say? Well, you better fix your words. What'd you say? And he goes, I'm 27. What? I was like, done. It took him a long time to convince me to give it a try because I was like, see you later. He did. If you saw this guy, if you see him on my socials, nobody goes, oh, she's a cradle robber. Oh, she's a cougar. Nobody thinks that because this guy, he looks older and he carries himself older and he's very mature. But basically, I had to look it up and see if it was legal. It actually is legal. I wasn't doing anything bad. I'm not going to go to prison for it. But it took me a long time to come. And he also came from very conservative parents. And when I first met them, like his mom even was like, dude, she's old. I know who she is because she's Becca's friend. Isn't she the old one? So I'm like, the old one, right? Yikes. And his parents are very conservative. And when they asked, we were at dinner and we were talking about Everly. They were like, well, how long have you been with Everly's dad? And I was like, well, including the conversation, 2 hours and 45 minutes. So still working to repair that relationship. Anyway, I should also say that I think Matt is going to propose. And by the time this airs, it'll line up. That way he won't see this episode beforehand. But I'm so nervous because we're going on a trip to New York City in the fall. We were also going to go to Maui in November, which would be like 2 weeks later. And I knew he was going to propose when we were traveling because A, he's not that big of a fan of Los Angeles where we live right now. And B, our number one thing we have in common is our love for travel. So when the fires obviously happened in Maui, we canceled that immediately. We were actually going to Lahaina, which, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And so we canceled that. So I knew that only left New York on the table. So I'm like, okay, I think he's going to propose. But he's a dude. So like when guys propose, it's like, I always picture like, I remember somebody in college got engaged and they'd been together for like 5 years and he literally like just threw the ring at her while they were watching TV and he's like, so we doing this or what? And I'm like, oh, what? Don't do that. And like we're going to a city he's never been in. He's well traveled, but he's never been to New York. And so he's so excited to go to this. And I'm like, oh, but he doesn't have the resources. He doesn't have the ideas. He's going to propose to me in like a dive bar bathroom. Like so we'll see how it plays out. We'll see what happens. I do have a best friend. My best friend in the entire world, Holly Mandel, lives there. So like, how much do you hint? How much are you like, here's her number, call? Like, can't, right? There's got to be some spot. I want you guys to message me on this one because I'd love the answer. Like, how much do you give them help with because you know they're a dude brain? I mean, look, I'm going to say yes either way because obviously. And also his relationship with my daughter, it's perfection. Like if she skins her knee, she wants to see him, not me. Like she's like, because she knows I'll be like, you got it. Let's go. You're good. Let's go. And he's like, that looked like it really hurt. And he gets on her level. I'm like, okay, I can't. Who's going to compete with that, right? So yeah, I'm interested about your guys' idea on how much I could push for the proposal. But then again, I just realized this will air literally the week yes. So message me, because this will air the week that we go to New York. And so I want to know before he proposes how much I'm allowed to push information his way. My only thing I asked for one thing. And that was that anyone could at least take a photo of the moment, just so it's captured for me. That's not too much. I don't know. Whatever. We're getting married. Okay. It's going to be beautiful. Who cares? And as we wrap up, I want to let you guys know I am starting my own Patreon at patreon.com/Nicole Birch, where you will get exclusive content. You'll be able to ask me questions through the Discord community. You'll be able to share your own experiences, which I will love to share on here, by the way. So please send in any experiences. And you'll also get a look at some of my Christmas cards. Now, here's the deal. I have been known to do the weirdest, craziest, funniest Christmas cards over the years. So, for example, my favorite Christmas card is one where me and my dog are doing cocaine. Now, I know for a fact that this Christmas card is still on people's refrigerators all year round, and this happened like 6 years ago. We also did one where my dog and I were skydiving. If you couldn't tell, I was a girl whose entire personality revolved around her dog. And then last year, a very tired mom that I decided to do a Christmas card with my daughter where I'm chugging champagne and she's painting me, but instead she paints the words ho, 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 because that's how she was created. So if you would like either previous Christmas cards or be on the list for this year's upcoming Christmas cards, get on that Patreon and let's have some fun. Let's get into that Discord. So that's the wrap. And ask the juiciest and the sauciest questions will be answered on Patreon. So whatever you ask, that's going to be for our subscribers only. It's going to get saucy and juicy and dirty, and I get to be raunchy again, which was how my whole comedy career started. So also don't look up any of my comedy on YouTube before 2016, because it was just blowjob jokes and I was wearing a flannel and a fedora. Okay, just ignore all those. It was a different time. It's how every female comic starts. But anyway, so that is it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you in the future. Bye.